no matter what path you choose to walk, and whether you believe or not, you can be certain that a fairy is watching.
Hello, fairy finders and fairy seekers. Welcome to FaerieQuest and another episode of Real Fairies in Real Photos. Today I'm taking you down into a dry riverbed or creek bed. We are down here, my husband and I, looking for hagstones. There was one found, although it is a very strange hagstone. A little larger than what we'd like to see, but still a hagstone. So anyway, this creek bed, we weren't very quiet in this creek bed. We were talking and calling out what we were finding, and we just were enjoying the time down in this very private area, although there are cars that go by right up above on the right-hand side here. You can hear them going by, and it didn't seem to faze anything with the fairies. I took a few photos here and there just to see if they were willing to come out while we were down there. And at first, I don't think I actually had any in the beginning photos that I was taking, but as I got to this middle section here, I think they realized that we were not going to hurt them. So they went ahead and came out for me. So as you can see, there's a huge culvert at the end of this dry creek bed here. And we actually crawled out from this. We didn't go back the way we came because there was a lot of ducking underneath of things, but we crawled out on the right hand side here, which you're about to see. Up through here is where we went to get back up onto the road and to our vehicle. So next I'm going to show you what was actually found, what fairies came forward. So I hope you enjoy the video. So this first photo is number 3334, and as always I have a portion of the main photo on the left hand side, and I've put the rectangular red box around the fairy in the photo so that you can see a little bit more in perspective of where this fairy is. Then on the right I have shown a blown up version of this fairy and have marked the different areas for you so you can tell what they are. And this one, we have the face somewhat faded. We can see the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, but they were blending. And then there's a hand and definitely a foot. They've tucked themselves into this little teepee-like looking hole. I thought this was pretty fascinating. Photo number 3336. This one is really kind of hard to see, and I'm surprised I actually found it. Again, putting the photos up to 200%, it makes it so much easier to see. But this one is kind of fading in as though she were actually fully formed and then decided to go back after hearing us. Not sure whether we were safe or not. Anyway, she is on the right hand side. She's wearing a hat. We can see both eyes and her nose and just a little bit of her mouth, but she is seeming to wear a robe or a coat, and we can see the collar of that by her, it would be her right cheek. We're seeing the left if we're looking at her, and then we also see her hand. I am thinking from this photo, number 3340, that this little fairy is reacting to us. I'm not positive on that, but I feel very bad seeing his expression. We can see that he has both of his hands up to his head, and his mouth is open in an O, like he's very stressed or he's kind of freaking out that we're there. Maybe he never expected humans to be in that dry riverbed, but he just doesn't look too happy to have us there. But we can see the top of his head and his chin. I've marked those so you have some context here. He's got the one hand is white, like it's a glove, but I think it's probably the light. We can see the other hand up against the other side of the head, and we can see an elbow and the arm for the other hand. He's pretty clear, even though he's small. Blurred in the enlarged picture, of course, because he is small, but he really does look a little disturbed by us. In the same photo, photo number 3340, up and to the left of the fairy you just saw, there's another fairy wearing silver. He has a silver hat and seems to have a silver outfit as well. Really big glasses. And we can see his nose and what also appears to be a mustache. He seems to be lifting with his legs, bent over, picking up something, lifting with his legs. You might have to look at the larger picture to kind of get the form of the body, but depends on what device you're actually looking on. But anyway, he's a rather interesting looking creature. His glasses are very big, as though, I don't know, they used to be called Coke bottle glasses, the really thick glasses, or he's wearing a pair of goggles for some reason. But he's an interesting fairy. Photo number 3341 shows a typical situation when we happen to come into a location. What happens is the fairies will want to see us, but they also want to hide. And some of the best places for them to hide are these hanging weeds. You've seen them before in my photos. This is an example of that. We can see the eyes, the nose, and the mouth of this fairy, and we can see one hand as it's wrapped around the blade of grass. But it's cocooned itself in, I guess they're dried leaves, pretty much dried leaves is what they form out of. And this one is a prime example of that hiding that I have come to expect when they first hear us or see us. Another fairy in photo number 3341, and again, it's formed out of a dry leaf, hanging dry leaf. And you can look at this one and decide for yourself, but there's just too much of a human type body in this dry leaf to look at it and say, oh, that's just a dry leaf. And if you look closely, you can see eyes, nose, and mouth. You can see hair. And this one is a female because she's wearing kind of a jacket, but you can see she has a chest. We can also see elbow, hand, legs bent at the knees. It's kind of hard to miss. And so she hid herself as quickly as possible in that dried leaf, or colored herself to match the dried leaf. In photo number 3346, we see a little fairy who decided to hide himself in the dirt of this dry creek bed. And when I say in the dirt, he colored himself literally to match the dirt, and he even has it on his face the way that it looks. But he's wearing a hat, and we can see his eyes, we can see his nose, which is a bit turned up, and he has very large lips. We can also see an arm, but the rest of him is literally blended with the base, the dirt in the bottom of this dry creek bed. So pretty fascinating that he is able to match the colors almost exactly. The only thing that he really couldn't hide was his face, and I'm glad of that. Another fairy in photo number 3346. This one is quite a bit smaller, a further distance away than the one that I just showed you. So you're going to have to look close, but this one is more of a scene. I could have come closer on her, but she's more of a scene because behind her, I believe there are steps going into this tree. And I didn't get the angle that I would have liked to have gotten, but who knew, right? Who knew that there would be steps there? But they're a little too uniform not to be steps. So anyway, she is down in front of the steps, sitting behind a root of this tree, and she is profile. We can see one eye, her nose, not really her mouth, but she has dark hair and it's really fuzzy on the top, and we can see one hand, which is white due to the lighting. But yeah, pretty fascinating view on this one. We're at the last photo here, meaning the last one that had fairies in it. This one happened to have 5. And if you can hang on to the end, the very best one is the very last one. Anyway, as you can see on the picture here, we have a very, I want to say, faded fairy here. And we can see that she has a hat. We can see her face, both eyes, nose, and we can see her body, but we can't see any details of her body. What's really interesting is the shadow that she is casting on the rock behind her, which I've marked for you. So she was in the process of fading away, I guess, when she saw us, just to be on the safe side. But again, they still like to see. So they don't go out of our dimension completely. So we see them like this instead. But this is cool. She's got a casted shadow. The second fairy in photo number 3351 kind of looks a bit skeletal. He's another one that has formed himself or used the dry leaves to blend into or form himself into. And we can see his hat, we can see a hand with fingers that he has up to his head. We can see both eyes, his nose, and his mouth, and I've marked the chin for you. And his arm that has the hand with the fingers almost seems like it's completely cut off from his body. But it's not. It's just the way that they use these leaves. It's such a neat process. But you can't miss him. He's a really cool looking fairy, and those fingers are incredible. Here is another way in which these fairies blend to be able to see, but yet not allow us to see them in full view, at least not with the naked eye. So the camera does catch them, and as you can see, we have on the right hand side this being, this fairy, facing us. We see both eyes, the nose and the mouth, has kind of fuzzy hair up on top, and we can see the body, though we can't really tell where the arms and legs or anything are. On the left, the ear, nose, and paw, we have a dog. And the dog looks kind of like a basset hound from the coloring and the size of the nose and the size of the paw. But we don't always just get fairies that are people-like. We sometimes also get animals, and we do have a portion of this dog that was faded into the tree, just like the fairy. Fairy number 4 in photo number 3351 looks to be alien-like, or at least the image that you might have in your head from television of aliens. We can see antennas, we can see big eyes, we can see an arm and a hand, we can see the other arm, and we have one leg here. It's behind the viney type branches coming down over the tree roots. But this is a very interesting creature, made again, blended into dried leaves. This, when they're available, they're one of the best things that these fairies can find to form themselves out of. But you know, you can decide on this one yourself. There's not a lot to work with here, but again, like the one girl in a previous photo, the humanness of the body shape is pretty difficult to ignore. There was nothing shy about this last fairy in photo number 3351. And again, he used the dried leaves to form himself. Only this one we can see some pretty good detail, and we'll start with his hat, which is pointed, and then we see his eyes and his nose. He has a full white beard and fuzzy hair, beard hair on his cheek area. We can see his mouth. He's actually fairly well dressed here. He's wearing kind of a jacket and matching trousers. We can also see how his knees are bent, and we can see his feet. He's sitting up there just as clear as can be. But you know, I need to really start looking more closely, not necessarily through the camera back or the TV on the back of the camera. I need to start looking with my eyes, but I might not get them then. I might miss it because if maybe they know I'm looking, they'll disappear really quick. I don't know, but this one is really, really good. And the detail in his face alone with the beard and everything is just incredible to me. So that's it. That's what I have for fairies in the dry creek bed. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you again in another one. Take care.